I'm kind of amazed I'm saying this 60 episodes in, but Takeda Shingen is the PC Engine's first belt-scrolling beat-em-up. We've actually seen a lot of the earlier style, copying Irem's Spartan X, but this is the first one that added that extra dimension that makes it belt-scrolling. It feels weirdly late for this one to come along. Takeda Shingen was one of the most significant warlords of Japan's Sengoku period. Starting as the ruler of a small mountainous province, he took control of much of the northern part of Japan, becoming essentially the second most powerful warlord in the country. Shingen is remembered for a few things. First, being a tactical genius. Second, his signature armor, which is probably the most famous samurai armor design. Third, his intense rivalry with neighboring warlord Uesegi Kenshin. They battled each other many times, and in a few cases got into hand-to-hand combat with each other. And fourth, his mysterious death in the middle of a castle siege, which probably changed the course of Japanese history. No one's entirely sure why Shingen died mid-siege, but the prevailing story is that he was shot. No matter how great that armor looks, it wasn't stopping bullets. Unsurprisingly, Shingen turns up a lot in video games, and Jalico used him as the basis for an arcade beat-em-up. It was released mid-1988, and like most arcade beat-em-ups at that point, it featured a two-player cooperative mode. And just like a lot of games around this time, when the PC Engine port was released, that cooperative mode was dropped. From what I've been able to determine, ICOM was solely responsible for this port, and they reworked the systems of the game to match the console sensibilities of 1986. Of course, it was released in 1989. There are 4 stages in Takeda Shingen, and each stage is intended to represent one battle. Shingen has to defeat the entire enemy army single-handed, and then beat up the army's commander at the end. Naturally, this means that the final boss is Uesegi Kenshin. Button 2 attacks and button 1 jumps. Your only attack initially is that one simple little swipe. That's it, that's all you can do. No jump attacks, no combo moves, nothing. Okay, there's one other move you can do, and that's if you get into a sword clash with someone, then you have to tap the D-pad toward them to get out of it. That'll make you do a little kick. When you defeat enemies, you'll get some money, and you'll get some experience. The experience bar is in the lower right-hand corner, and there are 4 symbols above it. When the bar gets past the symbol, then you unlock another move. The first one you unlock is a jump attack, a downward stab after you're in the air. Next is a stab attack. Push in a direction and hit button 2, and instead of a swipe, you'll stick your sword into someone. This does a lot more damage, which makes it more effective to use against some of the stronger enemies. The third attack you get is a spin-around slash. Press buttons 1 and 2 simultaneously, and you'll turn around attacking whoever is behind you for extra damage. And finally, you get a charge move, which you perform by tapping in that direction and hitting button 2 simultaneously. And when I say simultaneously for those moves, I mean it. The timing to activate them is super precise. You'll face 4 different kinds of enemies in Takeda Shingen. There's guys with swords, guys with chains, guys with spears, and guys with guns. As for the bosses, you've got a large guy with a sword, a large guy with a chain, a large guy with a gun, and those 3 become regular enemies on the final stage. All enemies can block your attacks, and they do this pretty arbitrarily, though it does seem to be harder for them to block special moves, particularly the stab and spin around attack. You can stand in place forever whacking away at a guarding enemy. What you have to do in those situations is just move a little bit, and that can be enough to cause them to stop blocking. Be careful about moving around them though, because touching an enemy hurts you. Not getting hit by an enemy attack, just touching them. At least the enemies are extremely easy to manipulate, since if you're ever facing more than one, the game picks one of them to walk around you to the far side. They won't do anything until they're in position, even if there's terrain in the way. On the other hand, a lot of enemies have a bad tendency to walk away from you as you approach them. And since they walk backwards at the same rate that you walk forwards, You spend a weird amount of time chasing people down. There are 3 different items you can collect as you're playing the game. Sometimes an enemy will drop one of Shingen's banners. When this happens, you restore some health. You don't pick it up, it just happens. The bundles that you can find can be cut open, and they'll randomly contain one of 2 different things. A bomb could fall out, which will kill nearby enemies when it explodes, or a potion could rise out of it, and that makes you invulnerable for a few seconds. I say it makes you invulnerable, but what really happens is enemies stop moving and start flashing instead. So you're not hurt by touching them, but they also don't fight you, so you just kick them over. Once you clear a stage, you go to visit a shop. And here you can purchase 5 things. The first 3 are healing items, since you don't get health back for clearing a stage. Then there's an expensive item that will boost your damage for the next level, and an item that will boost your defense for the next level. At the end of the first stage, you won't be able to afford everything that you want in the shop. After stages 2 and 3, on the other hand, you'll have so much cash that it doesn't matter. It makes you wonder why they bothered with the shop at all. You only have 1 life in Takeda Shingen, and no continues. Well, unless you use a cheat code. You can hold button 1 and press start to continue at the section where you died. At least until you get to the final boss, at which point the continue code no longer works. There's also a cheat code to make you invincible. If you press start to pause the game, and then tap up 32 times, then enemies can no longer hurt you, unless they shoot you. Yeah, I don't know if that gap in your vulnerability is stupid or brilliant. The game Takeda Shingen has a pretty bad reputation in Japan. In fact, it was a magazine whipping boy for a while, with reviews at the time calling it the worst PC Engine game. I wouldn't call it that, but it's a pretty close call. Nothing in this game works quite right. The way you interact with terrain and enemies just doesn't quite line up. It's trivial, and you'll likely do it, to get the enemy AI stuck in a permanent loop. Look at this sword clash. I put the controller down and walked away. It's hard to understate how bad this game is. The combat's annoying, the controls barely work, there's nowhere near enough variety of enemies, the stages are boring, the bosses aren't even anyone special. Takeda Shingen is a truly awful game. One to avoid.